Fan, peace and blessings. This is Derric Rau Khu more. And the other week I went ahead and I posted a video and I was telling people, trying to relay to people about my experience again. I was telling people that Kemetic spirituality, it begins with Set and not with Osir, or who the Greeks call Osiris. Now, there was a few people who went ahead, a lot of people, they got it. They understood what I was saying. But there was a few people who went in here and they were like, you're talking blasphemous. That's blasphemy. And it was interesting because first of all, I'm like, hold on, we're talking about Kemetic spirituality. We're talking about Kemeticism. And Set is in the chair. So to say that I'm speaking blasphemous is like, huh? And it was really something. It was interesting. Because like I said, yeah, it was quite a few people who went ahead and they was up in arms about that. They were like, I can't believe you said that Kemetic spirituality begins with Set. Some people went ahead and they wanted to give me a history lesson of how Kemeticism, how it began, with the Shabaka stone, and some people wanted to talk about Some people wanted to talk about the Hermetic laws, and I was like, I'm sitting up and I'm reading the DMs and I'm like, wow, because you can clearly tell, and I'm not knocking anybody on where they at in regards to their spiritual progress, but you could clearly tell some of these individuals, based upon some of these messages, they were freshly off that church boat. I mean, freshly off that boat. And so I had to go back and, like I was saying, I had to go back. I had to modify the thumbnail. I had to modify modify the message a little bit, and clarify what I meant by that. And again, even when I did that, even when I was responding back to some of these messages, still didn't get it. And it wasn't until after I read some of those and I kind of contemplated what was going on. And like I said, I'm not knocking anybody's progress or anything, but I started to look at it and see, okay, some of these individuals who are saying this, some of these people who are saying this, where are they? Where are they spiritually? And it was from that perspective that led me to make this video. Because what happened was I started understanding when I was looking and I'm reading these responses, I'm looking at the fact that they're talking about, if you were to look up anything about Kemetic spirituality, if you were to put in any kind of search on what is Kemetic spirituality, you get this whole slew of ideas, or you get this very, very broad definition that includes a list of all these different, pathways of what Kemetic spirituality is. You find out some of these individuals, according to a lot of these definitions of what Kemetic spirituality is or Kemeticism, they'll tell you that, well, Kemetic spirituality is anybody who's inspired by the Kemetic way of life, and they have an altar up, and the altar is dedicated to any of the Kemetic divinities. Another definition would say people who go ahead and align themselves, or they try to live their lives according to the mind. This is Kemetic spirituality. They'll tell you, oh, well, some of these individuals, they'll practice Wicca and also incorporate some of the Kemetic divinities. That's Kemetic spirituality. And they give all these different explanations of what Kemetic spirituality is. And when I thought about that, and I thought about the fact that, like I said, I had these few individuals who were not so much attacking me, but they were basically defending what they do and saying that, this is what they believe Kemetic spirituality is. When I went in here and I looked at it, it became clear. We clearly are not practicing the same thing. Well, obvious, but we're clearly not practicing the same thing. And my spirituality and the way in which I practice Kemetic spirituality is different from what other people practice. And if it's from that understanding, I want to clarify, and I want to also state that, excuse me, I want to also state that, like I said, what I practice, I can't really, even though it is a form of Kemetic spirituality, I don't really call it Kemetic spirituality, or I shouldn't call it Kemetic spirituality. And the reason why is because what I was trying to explain when I was saying this, that there's a difference, or spirituality, Kemetic spirituality begins with Set versus it beginning with Osir or Osiris, was that when I came into Kemetic spirituality, when I started dealing with Kemetic spirituality and really, really started understanding what it deals with and what it's about, what happened is that when there's chaos in my life, when there's problems, there's an obstacle, the way in which I approach it is I do a reading. And the reason why I do a reading is because I am, in a sense, mimicking the steps of Haru. What do I mean by that? If you are familiar with the story of Osir, you know that Osir went ahead and he established a kingdom, he unified the Kemetic people. Okay, and of course we're talking from mythological, metaphorical perspective. But Osir went ahead and he unified the people by teaching the people the Ma'at, teaching people about the law, teaching people about the law of the universe, Ma'at, Nacher, or teaching people about law, order, balance, divine purpose. Okay? After he taught those people, or after he taught his people this unified the people, and according to legend, the entire kingdom became prosperous, because no longer were they fighting against each other, no longer were they warring against each other. Everybody loved Osir, or Osiris. Everybody loved Osir except for his brother, his youngest brother, Set. Set, out of jealousy, killed his brother, killed Osier. And after he killed Osier, that brought an end to the whole prosperous, uh, the prosperity era of the first unification of Kemet. It was all Set, his wife, who was very, very, loving, very, very devoted to him, who wanted to give him a proper burial. When she finds out what happened to Osier, she's like, hey, I got to find him. I got to find his body and everything, give him a proper burial. And when she's going around, she's searching for him, trying to find the body of Osier, Ra takes pity upon her and sends her Impu. So when because Set's looking for Osier and everything, she can't find him. Until Ra takes pity upon her, sends her Impu, she runs to a group of children. They tell her and Impu and her, hey, the body of Osier, we saw a chest floating out towards sea. And she goes out, that's where she finds the body, brings it back and all that. Okay? All right, so like I said, most of us were familiar with the story. When Haru comes of age, so I'm going to skip parts. So when Haru comes of age, and Haru's like, hey, he's been told all this time, hey, I'm a child, I am the true heir of Osier. I'm going to challenge Set for my inheritance. I'm going to challenge Set for the kingdom. Excuse me. I'm going to challenge Set for the kingdom, for the throne. When he engages in battle with Set, at first he's beating, him and Set, they go back and forth. It's pretty much a stalemate. Until one day, while Set and Haru are fighting, Set managed to get close enough to Haru, gouge out his eye, forcing Haru to flee with his forces. They flee and they go see Jehuti, who the Greeks call Thoth. Jehuti repairs Haru's eye perfectly by giving him the lunar eye. This lunar eye gives Haru insight and wisdom. All right? It allows him to be able to look upon Set and see how to strategically strike him, because it gives him wisdom. So after Jehuti repairs Haru's eye, they get back in the battle again. Haru perfectly, went ahead and he strikes Set, forcing Set to basically surrender. And that's how he wins the battle. All right? After he wins the battle, they go through the whole trial and all that kind of stuff. And eventually, I'm not going to bore you with the rest of that, but he goes through all the trial and everything. And after he goes through the trial, in the end, Haru is awarded or rewarded the double Pashent crown, okay, which is the white Hedajek crown and the red Desharet crown, which becomes the Pashent crown, okay, which is the unified crown of Kemet. All right? Now, that is the, how do you call it? That's the, when people read that, or you hear about that, it's basically, Haru goes ahead, he gets the double crown, which symbolizes the unification of Kemet. But on a deeper perspective, from a more profound understanding of the story, it symbolized something else. Those two lands the black lens and the red lens, they symbolize the physical and spiritual as well that has been united. And it's because of the unification of the physical and the spirit that basically Haru this is how he becomes a God king, because he's in the world but not of the world. All right? Now, when I practice Kemeticism, I, in a sense, am mimicking Haru. When I have, to understand what I mean by that, when I have problems in my life, if I don't know how to solve the problem, I don't know how to, because it's a new problem, it's a new obstacle. If I don't know how to solve that problem, if I don't know how to resolve that issue, this is symbolizing me battling against Set. This is symbolizing me, being Haru fighting Set. Now, I can try to solve that problem by relying upon what I know, what I have learned, hence my right eye. Or I can go to Jehuti and have my eye repaired, which means going to get a reading, using an oracle, getting some divination done. All right. And in the process of doing that, I get insight into how to solve the problem. I get insight. I learn of, I get insight from Jehuti. I get insight from my ancestors or spirit guides, all right, those elevated spirits. I get insight that gives me the ideas of how to resolve the issue, how to solve the problem, how to overcome the obstacle, overcome the obstacle laid to me or laid before me by Set. So in a sense, as you can see, I'm mimicking Haru in my actions and in my behaviors. Once I go ahead and I'm able to overcome the obstacle, once I'm able to, I'm successful in overcoming the obstacle and solving the problem, now I've aligned myself with Mod. So, because I've brought peace to whatever was going on, all right, I brought an alignment to whatever was going on. So from that perspective, you can see I'm mimicking Haru. And this is completely different from me just saying, oh, okay, well, I like this divinity. I like this Kemetic divinity. I like this Neteru. Let me set up an altar. I like this divinity right here. Let me set up an altar to honor them and venerate them. That's completely different. And because it's different, that's the reason why, instead of saying what I practice is Kemetic spirituality, I'm trying to get people to understand this is Kemetic salvation. Because in Kemetic salvation, you are focusing on improving your life by aligning yourself with Mod. And in the process of you aligning yourself with Mod, you are growing and developing the inner strength, wisdom, and empowerment in the process. So that's the reason why I was trying to say, hey, this is not Kemetic. This is different from what people are, what most people call Kemeticism, or what most people call Kemetic spirituality. This is Kemetic salvation. All right? So hopefully that makes more sense. Hopefully you understand this is the difference between Kemetic salvation and Kemetic spirituality. Kemetic salvation is not focused on just doing something to be doing it, because in the hope of it bringing you closer to the divine. Kemetic salvation is about you actually getting your hands dirty. It's about actually doing the actual work. There was one, shout out to them. I forgot their handle, but it was like they were saying, oh yeah, they understood the video, and they was like, yeah, it's like shadow work. This is the first, yeah, you start off with shadow work, and it was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. All right, you're working, you're doing the work in order for you to become more spiritual, in order for you to become empowered. There's no more of this whole thing of waiting for something to save you. You save yourself. Because in the end, the whole point of this is, in the first place, is for you to become what you are living for. If you want to be an ancestor in the afterlife, you got to be an ancestor, or an elevated and enlightened ancestor in life. So this is the practice. This is what we're working on. And that is the reason why, instead of saying Kemetic spirituality, I say Kemetic salvation. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, feel free, drop me a line. Until next time, Hatchapu. Peace.